Alright, so for this example, we are still using difference of two squares, so this is what we are using. So let's have a look. We just need to identify our A's and B's, so lining up, A squared take B squared, so obviously that's going to relate to those ones. So as you can see, A is going to be 3x plus 2 because it's this squared, so that just becomes, the bracket becomes A. B is going to be square root of 9, so it's just going to be 3. So now that I have my A and B, all I have to do is write my final answer into brackets. So 3x plus 2 plus 3 is, so maybe I'll write that in a different colour so you can see the difference. Plus 3 as one of my options, and then 3x plus 2, and then take as my other option. And then all I do have to do last step is to simplify, so I'll just go like that so you know what I did. So first bracket, 3x plus 2 plus 3, so that's going to be plus 5, and then that one is going to be 3x plus 2 take 3, so it's going to be minus 1, and that is my final answer for A. Let's have a look at B. So again, it is still outlined in the same A squared take B squared format, like so, and then these line up like so. So I'm going to identify my A first. Again, it's just the x plus 2 bracket, and B is going to be the x minus 1 bracket because it's bracket squared, and then all I have to do is put it in my formula. So start with, I'll go over here, maybe I'll write over here just so it doesn't look like it's part of the question. So I've got A plus B. Now there's a reason I am putting brackets, and you will see why in the second one. A take B. Now if I didn't have my bracket here, that negative will only be applied for the x, and it's very important that you apply it to the negative one. So when I expand it, your answer will be wrong if you don't put the bracket there. This one plus, so it's easy, it's going to be x plus x, 2x plus 2 take 1, so it's going to be plus 1. And then the second bracket is going to be x take x, so it's going to be no x, and then plus 2 take minus 1, so it's a minus minus 1, which turns into a plus 1, so it's 2 plus 1, which is 3. So if I just simplify that, it'll look something like this. Okay, moving on to perfect squares. These are the patterns. You either get a plus pattern or a minus pattern. The only difference is the middle term. It's going to be a plus 2ab or a minus 2ab depending on the plus or the minus used. That's literally the only difference. So I line it up, a squared. So what I do is I notice the second term, the coefficient of the x is going to be a plus answer. So I know that this is going to be looking at the plus option. So I line it up and write the formula that I am aiming for. And then I try to find my A and B, and then just make sure it satisfies the two AB. So my A in this case is x, my B in this case is 5, just square rooting both x squared and 25, that's how you find it. And then I just got to double check that 2AB satisfies plus 10x. So 2AB in this case, if I substitute those, would be 10x. So there we go, it does work, so I can factorize it now into perfect squares. This one used the plus pattern, so that is my final answer. So I'll write my final answer in a different color. My final answer is going to be A plus B bracket squared. So A plus B squared, that is my final answer. Next thing, same thing again, notice that I've got a minus 14x for my second term, so I'm going to write A squared minus 2ab plus B squared as my formula that I'm trying to satisfy. And I need to find my A and B. A is x, B is 7, because 7 squared is 49, and then I just got to satisfy minus 2ab, so minus 2x7 turns into minus 14x, which satisfies that second term. So I can use my perfect squares, so it's a minus option, so it's going to be a minus b squared, so a minus b squared is my answer. Alright, same thing, fully factorized again. So I'm going to line it up. This is a minus in the second term, so I'm going to use the minus option. Line it all up, find my A and B. So A is 3x, 3x squared is 9x, so 3, my bracket 3x, bracket squared is 9x squared. My B option is going to be 1, so therefore my minus 2AB is going to be minus 2 3x1, which is minus 6x. So therefore I can use the perfect square equation, and because I'm using a minus, I write the a bracket a minus b pattern, so it's going to be bracket a minus b squared, and that's my answer. Same thing for the next one. Now, as you can kind of see, there's lots of big numbers here. I could just do perfect squares, but hopefully you notice that these numbers are not square rootable. So that means most of the time I need to kind of common factor things out. So what common factors can I divide them all by? Can't do 8. I can do 2. Can I do any bigger numbers? Can't do 4. I can't do 6. So 2 might be our lucky number over here. So I'm also going to divide out by a negative because I don't like working with negatives in my brackets, inside the brackets. So if I divide every term by minus 2, so this by minus 2, this by minus 2, this by minus 2, that is what happens when we factorize. So number is 4x squared over here, and then I get plus 12x, and then I get a plus 9. As you can see, I just need to make sure these terms are square rootable, which they are. I'm going to line it up to my pattern. They use a plus 12x, so it's going to be the plus 2ab plus b squared pattern. Line up my a squares and b squares and identify my a, which is 2x, b, which is 3, and write it, and then figure out my 2ab just to double check. So it works out. So 2 times 2 times 3, 4 times 3, 12x. It does agree with that one, so I can use it. So therefore, my final answer will be factorized as a plus option, 2x plus 3 squared. Okay, now we use sum and product. So this one, you need to figure out the sum and the product and figure out your two brackets as factors. So we are going to identify which one is the sum, which one is the product. So the constant term is what we always refer as product. The term with the coefficient for the x term is going to be my sum. Alrighty, so I just need to basically write down, start with the product. I write down what numbers can I times to get 4. I've got 2 times 2, 4 times 1. Now I do notice that, you should really notice that it's a plus. So my options are either when they're both pluses or when they're both minuses. I can't have one plus and a minus option, because if you times a plus and a minus together, it becomes a minus answer, and we want our product to be a plus option. And also just noticing the plus option, I can know that it's both going to be plus options, because if I go minus 2, take 2, it's going to give me minus 4 instead of plus 4. So I know what two numbers can I add to get 5. Well, it's not going to be 2 plus 2, so it's going to be 4 plus 1. So it's just going to be 4 plus 1. I like to always just write it and just show that it works out and then give it a tick. So that's going to be my option to use. So what you have to do is just identify these two factors and then write it in a bracket form. So my answer is going to be x. It's always going to look like two brackets with an x, and then you just fill in the two terms in here. So because the first term is a 4 and it's a plus 4, there's no minus, meaning it's a plus, so you just write plus 4. And then the next one is a plus 1, so you just write plus 1, and that is your fully factorized answer using sum and product. So now I'm going to apply that same thing again. So this one's going to be my product, the constant term. This one's going to be my sum. Now it's important to notice that the minuses are there. So I'm going to write the actual numbers. The product is minus 12. Sum we're aiming for is minus 1. It is important that you know that the coefficient of this is minus 1. And it is also important that you look at the minus and write minus 12. So what that means is when you consider the products, we're going to write the numbers only, but one of them is going to be a minus in order to give me a minus answer overall. So what numbers can I times to get 12? 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Okay, so I'm not going to bother writing 4 times 3 and 6 times 2 because you can just use the other ones, use these ones and just flip them around. You only just have to write one pair. Alright, so now what I have to do is look at these pairs, and then, you've got to realize one will be minus, because when you times them together, you want to get a minus 12. So you can be that minus, or you can have a minus here. Oh, my one went away. No. So one of each pair can have a minus answer. So when I add them together, I want a minus 1. So if I add these together, I either get a 13 or 11, so I don't really want that. If I add these together, you're still 4 apart from each other, but if you notice this, 3 and 4 are only 1 apart from each other. You just got to figure out if it's 3 take 4 or 4 take 3. So do a little bit of thinking and you should hopefully realize 3 take 4 will give you -1. Okay, so just do a little tick. And then these are the factors you'll be using. One factor, second factor. So just underline it, use a highlighter, whatever you need to do. So your final answer, again, you're going to write 2 brackets with X in them. And then literally just write that first factor, 3. There's nothing in the front, so it's a plus. And then the second factor has a minus, so that will be your answer. So that's the second page.